Well, welcome. It's so nice to see you all. I've met some of you before, but it's so good to see lots of new faces as well. I don't know why the people are in black, but I'd love to see your faces if you're happy with that. And it doesn't matter if you got your jammies on. I don't think anybody will make any comment about that. So I'm going to take you on a journey through Scottish stories. Now, I wondered which story to tell you first, but when I talked to Kathy and Douglas, Douglas said, oh, you've got to have something about burns in there. So I thought I'd better start with one that might, well, you might find it very interesting. Now, I happen to have my grandpa's book of Burns poems and songs, and it's wonderful. It's a really, really old version of it. It's that kind of thin paper, you know, and oh, it's just beautiful. And Burns was an amazing man. What a talented man he was. Bit of a rascal. But one of his most famous poems that we all know is Tam O'Shanter. I think there is nobody that hasn't heard that at one point. Aye, which starts with Chapman Billy's leave the street and Ruthie neighbours meet. And so it goes on, and he's got his wife gathering her brows like a gathering storm, nursing a raft to keep it warm. Ho, ho, ho. But what a great story. But what I'm going to tell you is very likely the source of Tam O'Shanter. I've got my tartan Tam O'Shanter up there. I don't know if you can see it very well. Yeah. And so, yes. Now, Robert Burns, he was, believe it or not, a customs and excise man down at Greenock. I know, it seems amazing, doesn't it? Sorry, I'm seeing Kathy in the main screen. I don't know what's happening there. Very nice. Yeah. So yeah, sorry, I don't know what's happening with that. Can you actually see me? You can. Oh, that's good that you can see me. Good, excellent. So lots of people came down from the Highlands, and a lot of them brought stories with them. So when he was there, he might have heard this Highland story, but also when he was a child, they had a relative called Betty Davidson, who was also from the Highlands and used to tell them all sorts of stories. And I'll leave you to guess where it might have come from. And I'll leave you to work out. Robert Burns pinched things from folk tales and folk songs and tunes. So I'll leave you to work out what the influence on Tam O'Shanter was from this story. Donald was a fisherman at Largs, and he had a simple life. He went out to fish and would come back in again, and he would sell his fish locally. So one day he set off in his boat, but the usual places that he would catch fish, there was nothing, no bite at all. So he went over to the Clyde estuary, where it went out to the sea, and he started to catch fish. He was so excited. But the trouble was, every fisherman needs to keep an eye out on the weather. But he was so busy catching the fish that he didn't notice that the wind had started to gather, and the waves were getting higher, and the rain started to blow, and the wind started to howl, and his boat got battered backwards and forwards. It would rise at the top of a great wave and thump down into the trough. He took his sail down, and he thought, this is going to be the end of me. I will die. For like most fishermen, he did not learn to swim, because that was regarded as unlucky. You would hope you never had to use that. And so he held on to the mast as the boat was rising to the top and thumping down, and the wind was blowing. And then there was a great big wave caught the boat and it smashed it onto solid ground. He had by some miracle reached the shore, and he was tipped out from the boat along with his fish onto the ground of the beach. Oh, the wind was howling, the rain battering his face. He was freezing. But then he looked up the hill beside him, and there at the top of the hill was a light. There was a house. He could get shelter. And so through the wind, he went up the hill with the rain tearing at his face. And finally he got to the cottage. Now, he was a cautious man. So he thought he'd just look in the window. And there he saw, and I don't know if any of you have experienced this, a blazing peat fire. Oh, the warmth that looked like it was coming off it. Oh, he could just imagine how wonderfully warm it would be as he shivered outside. And there, just by the window, was a table laid full of things that would heat you up. And if you can think of some things that would heat you up, you can pop them into the chat function, please. That would be great. So things that would heat you up. And then he noticed in front of the peat fire were 3 ugly hags. The first one was an old gin with straggly white hair. Aye, and a neb, a nose that almost met her chin. And she was warming herself in front of the fire. And then the middle one, well, she had a warty nose and a wee beard, and she was going, oh, that's nice and warm. Now, the third hag, well, she was quite young, but she had pokey out teeth and the most terrible cackle. Oh. And then the oldest hag took out of a basket beside her a blue bonnet, a blue tam o' shanter. And she got it. Now you can maybe help me here. And she wrung it out as if it was wet. Let's see you. Any of you do? Well, that's it. Good, Ruth. That's really good. Oh, yes, Alana's getting stuck into it. Excellent. And then she put it on her head and she said, "Ho to Kintail! Ho to Kintail!" And whoosh, she went up the lum and the hat tumbled down in front of the fireplace. What? Said Donald to himself, what just happened there? And then the middle one with the warty nose and the wee beard, she picked up the hat. And can you help me again? And she wrung it as if it was wet. Liz, think about it. You're nearly there now. The hand's nearly coming up. Well done. And then put it on her head and said, I think you've all got it, "Ho to Kintail!" Wow, Jane, that was impressive. And Ruth, woohoo! And up she went up the lum. Donna was amazed. And down the hat tumbled. And then the young hag, he picked up the hat. Yes, you've got it. And she wrung it. Yeah, well done, Carol. That's really good. And Gwyneth. And then put it on her head and said, "Oh, to Kintail!" Wow, I can hear that from you guys. It's so loud. And she whooshed up the lum and was gone. And the hat tumbled down in front of the fire. Oh, thought Donald, I'm glad I didn't go in straight away. And he waited a little bit. I thought that was wise in case they came back. Because it looked dodgy, very dodgy. But eventually he thought, they're not coming back. And he opened the door. Oh, and he went in front of that peat fire. Oh, the smell of the peat. Oh, and the heat and the warmth. Oh, it was wonderful. And then he looked at the table. And there were all the sorts of things that would warm you up. There was a glass of whiskey. There was a cup of hot tea. There was mulled wine. There was a hot toddy with the buttered scones. There was Irish coffee, my goodness, and porridge, oh yes, uskibach, and a blanket, yeah, for somebody, me's very sensible, a steak pie, and candles. Oh, Kathy, that's so nice, quite romantic. And so he scarfed down the lot. Oh, the whiskey fair heated him up. Oh, and followed by the mulled wine. Oh, it was so good. And the steak pie, well, he scarfed that down. Oh, and stovies as well. My goodness, it's all so good. And then he just couldn't eat anymore, couldn't drink anymore, and he sat down. Oh, it's so nice to be warm. Then he looked at the blue bonnet. And what do you think he's thinking? Yes, you're right, Nancy. Yes, you're right, Jean. Yeah, and Alana's got it as well. Yes, he thought, I wonder if I could do that with the hat. Do you think he should? Tell me. Do you think he shouldn't or he should? Oh my goodness, all these thumbs up. Oh, no. Oh, Christina says no. Yeah, Gwyneth says no. Well, I'm afraid the yeses get it. So he picked it up, and I think, you know what he did next? And he wrung it. Well done, Kathy. And then he put the bonnet on his head, keeping it firmly on, and said, you've got it. Oh, tick and tail. And whoosh, up the Lumley went, through the storm. Oh, Alana's getting into that, my goodness. And sailed through the air with the rain battering at him, the wind howling past him. Whoosh, over the Scottish countryside he went until he came to a huge big castle at Kintail and went right down a Lum, whoosh, and landed in a vast cavern full of row upon row of wine. Whoa! Ya dancer, he said. Fantastic. And at the end of the cavern was doors open, light spilling out, and the sound of dancing. And it was great fun. Woo. And he thought, wow, I like a good dance. And he noticed that the three hags had got their arms full of bottles of wine. So he helped himself and followed them to where the dancing was. And oh, there was so many people hooking and chooking. Woo! Come on, Barbara. Yes, that's fantastic. Oh, there's some fantastic dance. Woo! 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 Mary, that's a lovely laugh you got. Wow. Woo! Woo! Oh, he was having a great time, and there was some lassies that were in their cutty sarks. It looked like just a nightie, a wee shorty nightie at that. Woohoo! Oh, he liked dancing with them. Woohoo! Woo! Woo! Oh, Margaret, I love that. You must be a Highland dancer. Woo! And Rods, wow! Wow! Oh, he nearly shouted out, well done, Cutty Sark, but he thought that might have been a bad idea. Interrupted all the fun. So one of the old hags came up to him and said, Sonny, I need some more wine. Can you help me? And he was very happy at this stage. And so he went out to help them, three of them. And then just as they were getting their arms full of wine, bottles of wine, the stairs that led to the main castle, the door opened, and there stood a man with a lantern looking down. Oh, what's going on here? Immediately, the old hag picked up the hat that Donald had dropped, squeezed it and said, oh, to Greenock. Well done, Christine, she's on the ball. And the second one wrung the hat, put it on his head, said, oh, to Greenock. And the third one quickly did that, well done, you're all getting there, by Joyce, that's a brilliant smile, whoosh, and whoosh, off they went, leaving the blue bonnet on the ground. And the official came down, and there, as the door slammed shut and all the music and dancing, there stood Donald, you've guessed it, by himself, red-handed, caught red-handed. Oh, said the official, it's you that's been stealing the Laird of Kintail's wine. You shall hang for that. But, said Donald, putting down the wine and carefully picking up the blue bonnet and put it in his pocket. It was the old hags and you're for the jail and the hangman tomorrow, the official said, and they tied up his hands and he was put in the jail. Well, the next day, Donald got taken out, and there was the wooden gibbet with the hangman's rope and noose hanging there. And as is usual, the hangman said, do you have any last requests? Yes, he said, I would like to put on the lovely blue bonnet the tam o' shanter my granny knitted for me before I go to meet my maker. And so he was untied and he took out the blue bonnet. Yes, you've got it. He squeezed it, put it on his head and held it tight and said, ho to Largs! And whoosh, through the air he went, right over Scotland, back to Largs, back to his wee cottage. And he had taken with him the wooden gibbet and the hangman's noose. Now, as you know, all fishermen can use a good bit of wood and a solid bit of rope, so he made use of them. But I will leave it up to you to decide whether he ever used the blue bonnet again. And that's the end of that story. Yay! Woo-hoo! Woo-hoo! Woo-hoo-hoo! Oh yes, it is. So that was, I suspect, where Robert Burns used as a base for his story, Tam O'Shanter. Never again. Nancy says, never again. She would never do it again. I don't know if I would or I wouldn't. Fantastic. Thanks so much for joining in there. That was wonderful. So you need to read Tam O'Shanter again and see what influences came from that story. So I don't, keep it handy, Kathy. Oh, I wonder what that is. Keep it handy. Oh, you keep it handy. Ah, ha, ha, I get it now. Douglas is saying that. All right, okay. Ooh. Yeah, so we get you out of something very quickly. So the next story is there's a type of tale that is a pourquoi tale. So why or what, the reason why something is as it is. And I'll leave you to decide whether you think this is a true story or not. Now, I don't know about you, but I love Highland cows. Yeah, one of my favourite creatures, aren't you? Oh, he's lovely. She's lovely. Yeah, I love their russet hair and their horns and their big brown eyes. I just think they're wonderful. They always remind me of the Highlands. And Barbara likes them as well. So does Kathy. Anybody else? Let's see. Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's loads of people like lovely coos like that. Now, there was once a long time ago, there was a crofter up in the north, and he lived with his wife and his son Tam. Now, they had a simple life, a crofting life. They had a few sheep, they had land that they put vegetables in, and they had a cow, and she was called Bruni, and she was a Highland cow with the lovely russet hair, the big brown eyes, the lovely soft, big soft nose, and she was just produced the most delicious creamy milk, and made the most delicious cream out of it, and butter out of it, and cheese out of it. Oh, it was so tasty, and the smell, it was wonderful, and people knew far and wide how wonderful her milk and creamy things were. And Tam, well, he looked after Bruni. He put her in the byre at night, and he'd say, "Good night, Bruni." And she would look with her big brown eyes and her big soft nose, and she'd go, "Mm." And then in the morning, Tam would let her out onto the grass, out into the fields. One morning, Tam went to open the byre door, but it was open already. And he went in, and he could not see Bruni. She was not there. Where could she have gone? He was sure he had closed the door at night. And so he shouted for her, and maybe you can help me here. He said, "Bruni, Bruni, moo if you can hear me." No, well done, Kathy. Oh, yeah, good shouting there, Ruth. And he went the other way and shouted, "Bruni, Bruni, where are you?" Sorry, it was really loud. You did really well there. But no, there was no reply. And he went in and he told his parents he couldn't find Bruni. She wasn't coming to his call, which is not normal for her. And so his parents went out and they shouted for her, "Bruni, Bruni, moo if you can hear me, help me here. Come on, Liz, let's see you shouting there. Bruni, Bruni, where are you?" But there was no answer. And Tam's mum said to him, "I'm sorry, Tam, but the giants have heard about her. They've heard about her creamy milk, and they have stolen her away." "Well," said Tam, "I'm not going to let them steal our cow, not Bruni. I am going to go and get her back from the giants." Well, Tam's mother said, and I'm sure if any of your mothers would say the same, "You can't do that, Tam. You're a wee laddie, and they're huge, really huge giants. What can you do? How could you rescue Bruni?" "Well, I'm going." Now, Tam was stubborn, a bit like his dad, and he would not be dissuaded. So his mum put some good things into his backpack, and off he set with a stout staff, and he started to walk and walk. I don't know if you can join in here. Walked and he walked. Yeah, there's some good walkers here. And he walked. Well done, Liz, you're walking. And Margaret, whoo, you can tell you're good at walking. Oh, but as with laddies, he got a wee bit hungry. So he took out of the backpack a brilliant bottle of Bruni's milk and drunk it down. "Oh, Bruni, your creamy milk. Oh, Bruni." And he shouted, "Bruni, Bruni, help me here. Bruni, Bruni, moo if you can hear me." And he went the other way. "Bruni, Bruni, moo if you can hear me." And then, and maybe you can help me here, there was a little moo. Moo. May, that was a really good moo, I could tell there. And there was, "Oh, Bruni, Bruni, oh, it's her." And off he set, he went a bit faster. Oh, I'm getting out of breath here. He went, and then started to get a wee bit peckish again. And so he went into his backpack and he got out. It was a roll, fresh baked bread with Bruni's butter inside, melt on the tongue. And he scarfed it down. "Oh, Bruni," he said. He shouted for her again. Bruni, Bruni, move if you can hear me. And he went, yeah, some good shouting going on here. Bruni, Bruni, move if you can hear me. And then there was a middle-sized moo. Moo. It's Bruni! And he started to run, really run. Come on, who's the fittest here? I think Barbara is. Oh, and Margaret. And Judy, she's going. Then he felt hungry again. And he took out a hunk of cheese. Oh, the smell, the taste. Oh, Bruni, where are you? He said. Bruni, Bruni, move if you can hear me. And then he shouted, Bruni, Bruni, move if you can hear me. And then he heard, and I wonder if we can all do it together, a huge big moo. Moo! Wow, that was really loud. And he looked down, he was at the top of a hill, and he looked down, and there was a cave mouth with Bruni's tail just poking out. He ran down the hill, and there was Bruni. Oh, Bruni, you're alive. Oh, he was overjoyed. He always had his penknife with him, and he sawed with his dirk through the rope, and off he set towards home with Bruni. And then he heard a voice booming from the hill behind him. Stop! That's our cow! And then a moderately loud voice. Stop! That's our cow, isn't it? And then he looked behind him, and there was a great big giant with a toty wee giant, still a giant, beside him. And they started to run after Bruni and Tam, and well, their legs were longer than his, and they were catching up. Oh, Bruni, said Tam, they're going to catch us. Oh, what shall we do? And then the most amazing thing happened. Bruni spoke. Oh, take a hair from my tail and put it on the ground, and it shall become a fast flowing river, so long and so broad that only a bird on the wing may cross. Wow, you can speak, thought Tam. But there was no time to delay. He took the hair from her tail and put it on the ground, and can you help me here, and made a river so broad and so fast. Oh, wow, this is amazing. Wow, that's great, Gwyneth. Lovely. And Christine. Woo. And the big giant said, that's not going to stop us. And the wee giant said, that's not going to stop us, is it? No. Go and get the big bull. Okay, said the wee giant, and off he went, and he came back with an enormous bull. And the bull souped up, maybe you could help the bull. He souped up the water until the water was gone, and the giant started chasing after Bruni and Tam. Oh, they're going to catch us, Bruni. They're nearly here. And Bruni said, take a hair from my head and put it on the ground, and there shall arise a blazing fire so high and so long that only a bird on the wing may cross. Immediately, Tam did that, and there arose a blazing fire. Can you, absolutely roaring. Wow, Margaret and Alana, that's fantastic. And Kat, Gwyneth and Joyce, wow, fantastic. Yeah, and the big giant said, that's not going to stop us. And the wee giant said, that's not going to stop us, is it? No, go and get the big bull back. Okay. And off the wee giant went, and he got the great big bull. And the bull spewed out the water. And put out the fire and started chasing even faster after Tam and Bruni. Oh, they're really going to get us now. I'm so tired, said Tam. And Bruni said, take a hair from my ear and put it on the ground, and there shall arise a mountain range so long and so broad that only a bird on the wing may cross. So Tam did that, and I want to see some serious mountains here, folks. So the mountains arose everywhere, far as the eye could see. Oh, wow! And the giant said, that's not going to stop us. And the wee giant said, that's not going to stop us, is it? No, go and drink big. Go and bring the big drill. Big drill. Okay, said the wee giant. And he came back with an enormous drill. With an enormous drill point. And they started to drill and drill. Can you help here? Drilled and they drilled and they drilled until there was a hole drilled right through the mountains. And they could see Bruni and Tam running away in the distance. Well, the big giant couldn't wait. He shoved himself into the hole to try and get them. And he just wasn't getting very far. And he said to the wee giant, give me a push. So the wee giant gave him a push. Oh, he got his feet up. Oh. But it really didn't make a lot of difference. Meanwhile, Tam and Bruni had got home. And when his mother and father saw him, they, oh, Tam, you came back. Oh, so pleased to see you. And you've got Bruni. You are so brave. And so they did live happily ever after, with Bruni producing her delicious creamy milk. But Tam and Bruni, they never let on that Bruni could speak. That was just between Tam and Bruni. And as for the giants, well, they turned to stone. And as for those mountains, those are the Aviemore Hills. And if you go to the Aviemore Hills, to a certain mountain, at the foot of it, you will see what looks like a big bum with legs sticking out and a pair of boots and a wee kind of giant-sized bit of rock beside it that looks like a wee giant. Because this is a true story. Aye. So, yeah. And so that's one of the stories that has been passed down, and often stories are to explain why something's there or why a particular rock formation is the way it is. So it's interesting that would probably have been traditionally passed down, and with the Senechis, the storytellers of each community, would pass down stories. So that's quite good fun. So I quite like that story, and because I like, as I say, I like Highland Coos. So yes, so now I'm just wondering what I might tell you next. Yeah, let's see. Yeah. So one story that I've heard from a storyteller called Sylvia Troon. She's up in Fife. She's an amazing storyteller. And this is a story I heard from her. Now, you may not know this, but in Scotland, there are creatures called bogles. Now, you don't want to meet a bogle. No, you don't want to meet a bogle, because they're horrible creatures generally. And there was one particular bogle called Glaciu. Now, Glaciu had a very long beaky-like nose and very springy legs. And his favourite thing was scaring people to death. And he had a long row of sharp teeth that he used to smile with. Not a very nice smile, really. But that was his favourite thing, to scare people to death. So you don't want to see one of those, do you? Definitely not. But he was roaming about in Scotland and he saw a wee croft, a wee cottage, and he thought, ho, 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 there was smoke coming out of the chimney. And he thought, ha ha, there's somebody in there. I can scare them to death. It'll be so much fun. I'm going to have a great time. Now, I think I'm going to have to get you to help me here. Now, you all look too smiley and nice to really do this, but I'm sure you can just put that aside for a minute. I want to see the scary, after 3, I want to see the scariest face you can possibly make after 3. So 1, 2, 3. Oh my, oh Margaret, that was amazing. I think Liz is getting liquid refreshments. I think that's told too much for you. There were some very scary faces there. You'll know when to use that in a minute. So, Glaciu went up to the door and knocked on it. And there answered an old lady. And after 3, Glaciu went... 1, 2, 3. Ah! Oh, Sonny, said the old woman, you've got an awful sore throat there. Come away in for a cup of tea. Well, the bogle was amazed. Usually, when he did, people screamed and ran away and made it much more fun for him. This is very surprising. Come away and sit down by the fire. I'll put the kettle on. And the bogle thought, right, I'll try it again. This time it's got to be seriously scary, folks. 1, 2, 3. Woo, Rose, that was good. Oh, and Margaret. But the old lady said, I am needing that cup of tea, son. And she gave him the cup of tea. And he said, are you not frightened by me? Usually when people see me, they run away screaming, but you don't seem to be bothered at all. And I really, why is that? Well, said the old lady, I've seen worse things than you in Glasgow on a Saturday night, you know. Oh, no, no, you're not that scary. Oh, really? Said the bogle. And then the old lady said, so what frightens you then, Mr. Bogle? Well, this was a shock. This was a shock for the bogle. Nobody'd ever talked to him before. Oh, yeah, nobody'd ever talked to him. And he'd never been asked this. And he said, well, I'm really scared of jiggy-jaggy thistles. I once fell on my bum and there was jaggy bits in my bum for weeks. I'm terrified of jiggy-jaggy thistles. Ah, said the old lady. Ah, anything else you're scared of? Oh, scratchy, prickly gorse. Oh, I once fell. I was trying to get this beastie and I put my hand in it and I got scratched and scratched all the way down my arm. Oh, I'm terrified of prickly, scratchy gorse. Said the old lady. Interesting. Anything else? And so he said, he said, nettles, stingy, minging, stinging nettles. I hate nettles. I once felt, and I got my nose in it, and I was lumpy and bumpy all over for weeks. I'm terrified of stinging nettles. That's interesting. So, jiggy-jaggy thistles and prickly, scratchy gorse and minging, stinging nettles. Right, okay. And then the bogle said, well, since I've told you what I'm frightened of, you should tell me what you're frightened of. Now, do you think he should? She should? Or she shouldn't? Oh, there's all right, there's a lot. It's half and half here. I think Kathy said, go for it. So, yes, she did, Kathy. She actually did. And she said, well, I don't think I should really tell you, but since you've been kind enough to tell me what you're frightened of, I'll tell you what I'm frightened of. And so she said, oh, freshly baked scones. Freshly baked scones. Oh, the smell and the taste, and oh, that texture of them. Oh, and when you put butter in them and how they melt, and when you put jam on them, how horrible they taste. Oh, terrified of freshly baked scones. Said the bogle. Interesting. Anything else? Well, said the old lady, golden coins. Golden coins, the clink and the clunk and the shine in your eyes, and then having to find room for baskets of them. Oh, terrified of gold coins, absolutely terrified. Don't bring them anywhere near me. Said the bogle. May, oh wow, I love it. She's got a hat and a mask on. She's turned into a bogle. You see May? She's turned into a bogle. I love it. That's amazing, May. Is that virtual as well? Oh, it's so cool. Yeah, there you are. May is the bogle now. Wonderful. And then there was a third. The bogle said, is there anything else you're really frightened of? Now, can you help me? Can you put in the chat what she might say next? What might she say that she was really frightened of? I love me. Any suggestions in the chat function? Right, wine and fluffy kittens, dark nights, sharp, huge diamonds. Wow. So she said, oh yeah, that's some great suggestions there. So she said, oh dear, and I'm terrified of sharp, huge diamonds. Oh, the way all the facets shine and you get rainbow colours coming out of them, and the way you've got to go and get them, take them somewhere to get something done with them. They're a right faff. They're terrified. And fluffy kittens as well. I hate fluffy kittens. They're terrible. And especially if they're wearing fluffy slippers, even more terrifying, horrible. And chocolate as well, and wine. Oh no, don't bring whiskey. Don't bring any of those. They are terrified of all of them. It's horrible. No, don't bring any of that near me. So the bogle said, right, I'm not going to finish my tea. I've got to go. And he went out rubbing his knobbly, gnarly hands and rubbing his long nose in excitement. Oh, I'm going to kill her. I'm going to do so well. I'm going to terrify her. Absolutely wonderful. So he went off to bake some freshly baked scones. He went to his big store of treasure with gold, and he got the kittens that he had with their fluffy slippers, and he's got wine and whiskey and all the other things already got them together. Meanwhile, the old lady was laughing to herself. She got some hessian on her hands. She got her scissors and she cut, can you help me here? She cut some jiggy jaggy thistles, put it into her bag. And then she cut some, careful there, with a prickly scratchy gorse, and put that into her bag. And then she cut some minging stinging nettles and put that into her bag, and then put them all round her house, right the way round. Sat down, gave the chimney a bit of a clean so it wasn't manky, and sat down and got her cream and her jam and a nice wee cup of tea all ready. And so the bogle came, and he looked in shock and horror at the house. It was surrounded by, help me here, yes, Alana, jiggy jaggy thistles, prickly scratchy gorse, and minging stinging nettles all the way round. Oh no! Aha! but he had springy legs, a bit like a kangaroo, and he scrunched himself up and boing, went right up onto the roof beside the chimney, the lum. And then he shouted down the chimney, "You're not going to like this. There's going to be some fresh bannocks coming down the chimney." And so he started to pour the freshly baked bannocks down the chimney. And the old lady said, "No, no, oh, don't pour them. Oh, that's horrible. Oh, the smell. Oh, the look of them. Oh, the texture. It's horrible. Oh, no, please don't send down any more." And she got baskets of delicious bannocks. "Oh, no, stop." "Ha ha," thought the bogle. "Hoo, hoo, hoo. That really worked well. You're not going to like this. There's lots of gold coins coming down." And so he poured his gold coins down the lum. And the old lady said, "No, not gold coins, the clink and the clunk, the shine and the weight of them," as she held her basket underneath. "Oh, no, they're horrible, how terrible," and brought another basket. No, please stop." And the bogle thought, "Oh, this is working so well." And then he got the rest of the things he had. He was very careful with the kittens, with the fluffy slippers. And he said, "There's more things you hate coming down." And he poured the kittens down, and she caught them and put them carefully in a wee basket with their slippers. And then he bunged a few bottles of wine and whiskey down, and she too caught them. "No, please, no, stop the whiskey and the wine and the mulled wine. No, far too much. No, oh, it's too ghastly. Oh, no. And the chocolate. Oh, and those sharp diamonds. Oh, they're so sparkly. Oh, they're terrible. I hate them. Oh." And then there was silence. Oh, from the bogle, rubbing his gnarly, knotted hands. "Ha ha! I've killed her. I've done it. I've done the job so well. I've done it so well. I was perfect at that. Oh, I'm so happy." And he bounded off the roof and bounded home, chuckling with glee that had been so successful. Meanwhile, the old woman got her wheelbarrow, and she put a few things there. She got her scones in there. She definitely put the bottles of whiskey and the mulled wine, and she carefully put the kittens on in a basket with her fluffy slippers, and all of the gold coins as well, and oh, those scones, that would do her fine. And off she went to the town, and she went to see what houses there were for sale, and she got herself a lovely house with everything you could possibly want in a house, and with the fluffy kittens with their fluffy slippers, and all the many bottles of whiskey she had, and the gold coins. I think you can guess. She lived happily ever after. That's right. Well done. You're so good there. I think we could just have a wee chook here. There's a wee hook and a chook. Yay. Well done, old lady. Did a wee dance to herself. And the kittens with the fluffy slippers. They were all having a wee dance. I witted the bogle. Yay. And the bogle said, "I've killed the lady." And the kittens are going, "Oh, this is great," with their fluffy slippers. Wow! Give yourselves a round of applause for that. That was amazing. I love your dancing. You're so good at this. I've got my wee Highland lassie there just to get us all in the mood. Wow, you are just amazing, aren't you? So, yeah, I think I've got time for one more story, I think. So I have a place that has an island that has a special place in my heart. I love it. It's Iona. Iona, the island of Iona. I don't know how many people have hands up who's been there. Rose has been there, Jane. May's got a red hat on there. Oh, you've got a tam o' shanter on, May. Love it. Oh, and there's a teddy bear. Margaret Cowie is now a teddy bear. That's lovely. I like your teddy bear. So a lot of you have been to Iona. You, Kathy, as well. Oh, that's fantastic. Lots of you have been there. So this story is set in Iona. Dair sat on top of the hill, looking out towards the sea that was sparkling in the sunlight, and up to the blue sky full of fluffy white clouds, and the larks were singing up in the sky with their melody pouring down. And she sat there with all the mahir around her, the aroma, the smell of the mahir, of the flowers and the wild thyme. This was the island of her birth, the island of her heart. And she was remembering 3 years ago what had happened at summertime also. It had been a warm summer, and she had gone down to the well and had got some cool, clear water to drink. And then she saw Lugna, the fisherman, who was a hunchback, and he was pulling in his boat with his catch of fish. And he put his catch of fish over his shoulder and hurtled towards his cottage. And the children laughed at him and mimicked him with his hurtle and his hunchback and made fun of him and threw stones at him. And Dair's heart went out to him. And she took the cool, clear water and offered him a drink. Lugna looked at her with his lovely brown eyes, and there was just so much pain and hurt in that face, but also he loved the way she was so tender and kind. And Lugna never forgot that. He never forgot that kind, tender young woman, and how she had taken pity on him and given a cool, clear drink of water. Well, for the rest of that summer, there were wild storms, pouring torrential rain, and a lot of the crops were ruined. And when it came to winter, it was a fierce, cold winter, like some of you, I'm sure, have experienced. And those islands, they're so battered by the storms and the wind. And many people had not enough to eat. And some people started dying of hunger. But Lugna, throughout that time, brought salted fish and fuel for the fire and grain that he had put aside and saved. And all throughout that winter, Dair and her brothers and sisters and her mother and father, they lived out that winter. And when it came to spring, Dair's father was down by the shore, and Lugna had just brought his boat in and had the catch of fish over his shoulder. And Dair's father said to him, "Lugna, you have kept the breath of life in me and for me and my family. We are so thankful to you. Is there anything that I can do to thank you for this?" Well, Lugna, he thought, and he said, "There is one thing. I would like to marry Dair." So Dair's father went up to the croft and he said to Dair, what he'd said to Lugna, what Lugna had said to him. And he said, he's kept the breath of life in you and your brothers and sisters and us. He's kept our family alive. And I just want to thank him. Well, Dair said, no, 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 I am not marrying him. I don't love him. I don't. And he's so ugly. But I don't love him. Well, Dair's father said, he's kept us all alive. We would not have survived this winter if he hadn't helped. All right, said Dair, I will marry him, but I can't love him. And so it was that they were married in the little stone oratory that St. Columba had set up. They were married there. So Dair cooked, and she cleaned, and she washed, and she looked after the croft. But she didn't love him. And Lugna knew that. Every day he looked at her, and he knew she was a great housekeeper. She looked after him, but she did not love him. And it felt like, along with the hump on his back, was a great hump of sorrow. And the joy of life just seemed to go. Now, one of the jobs that Lugna had was ferryman, for he was strong. And Dair was sitting up on the hill, looking out, feeling like her world was dark and black and hopeless, when she saw Lugna bringing a man across, and it seemed like there was a glow around him. It was Columba, Colum Keel, the dove of the church, the man of God who was going around and telling people how God loved them. And when Lugna had beached the boat, Columba came right up to Dair. She'd come down to the cottage, and he greeted her and took her small hands in his old gnarled hands. And he said, oh, you must be Dair. Lugna has told me so much about you. It is so nice to meet you. And then, oh, Dair's feelings welled up in her, and she said, yes, I am Lugna's wife, but I cannot love him. I have heard that there is a place where women just are by themselves in a house and they worship God. Maybe I should go there. Then, still holding her hand, Columba said, do you believe in the God of love? Yes, said Dair. Do you believe that God can create love where there is none? Well, looking into his eyes, she could only say yes. And Columba said, I shall pray. I will go down to the shore and I shall pray about this. And Lugna, well, maybe he could go into the little stone oratory and he could pray there. And you can pray in the croft. And in the morning, I will come back. And if you still want to go to the house of women, then so be it. And so he left. And Dair sat down by the fire and she tried to pray. She tried to ask God to help her to love Lugna, but it didn't work. No. She had to go out. She pulled her shawl around her. She opened the door and the wind was blowing and the moon was shining down through a thorn tree, and it looked like there was a giant monster coming with sharp claws towards her, and she cringed in fear against the door. And then from behind the shadows there came Lugna, so cold. His whole body was shaking with cold, and the moon shone on his face, and she could see how cold he was, and his brown eyes looked at her full of every ounce of love he had for her. He loved her so much with all his heart. And then she remembered that time when she had gone 3 years ago and had offered him the cool, clear water, and his eyes, and what a fine man he was. And she fell in love with him, and she drew her shawl around him and said, Lugna, come inside. I will make you warm. And so together they went in. And in the morning, Columba came to the door and said, well, do you want to go and live in the house of women that worship God? And Dyer said, no, I don't. For I love Lugna with all my heart. He is a wonderful man. And so it was that she was sitting there on top of the hill and looking out at the sparkling water and the blue sky with the clouds and the larks singing their melody, and smelling the machir as she sat there. And her heart was filled with joy.
Thank you. That was lovely.
Yes, so that was inspired by another storyteller called David Campbell. And I think we should just end up with a wee song, a wee Hookin' a Chookin' song. Right, there we go. So don't unmute yourselves, because if we all sing at the same time, it will sound quite... yes, Mancy, she's putting her hands over her ears. Yes, so you can sing it at home, because we're allowed to do that, and I'll sing it. And I'm not saying I'm any great singer, but let's join in together and sing this one. It's Mary's wedding, and they had a hook and a chook at the wedding. Oh, so much joy. Step we gaily on we go, heel for heel and toe for toe, arm in arm and row all for Mary's wedding. Over hill ways, up and down, myrtle green and bracken brown.